Yeah.
So your movie, you know, so you're a doctor and you do this for a living, all right? As a palliative care doctor, you help people die um, to the best of your ability, feeling safe, feeling cared for, not in pain, being as present as they possibly can for as long as they can, um, and to be able to die comfortably at home if possible, and preferably, but and in community with the people that they love. That's like that's your goal.
Yes, but here's the irony. I do that work, but I do it inside of a hospital. And that's why making this film was so eye-opening for me, because I didn't know about family caregiver burden. I know what happens in the hospital, and I know that a death in a hospital can be horrible and is usually horrible. And I know that most people want to be home when they die, but I had never followed a patient home. So this was my first opportunity to see what actually happens after I send somebody home with hospice. And I always thought, oh, we got, we got them what they wanted, and I assume a happy ending. And it was only when I followed my friends home that I actually learned about this public health crisis, that if anyone should know about it, I should know about it. And I didn't.
You didn't. Well, what did you think was going to happen, and what was your goal when you first started documenting this?
Here's what happened with that film. That film was supposed to be about my amazing, fun, courageous, vivacious friend,
Bambi.
Bambi, going home to die and having a positive experience. That's my assumption. And I guess being a documentary filmmaker, which you are more than me, I'm a doctor, that's my day job. I did not expect to be shocked by my own film. And what happened was, it was a year after Bambi died that I found this amazing co-director, Kevin Gordon, to come and see if there's a story in the footage that I had collected. I saw Rick as a secondary character in this film, as the guy who opens the door for hospice. I did not in any way expect that his experience was going to end up being the focus of the film.
Did you realize that hospice was going to come very infrequently and it would all land on him?
I knew, I guess logistically, I just didn't know what it was going to actually look like, for all of the laundry and all of the cleaning out of the fridge and the wiping the counter and all the stuff that needs to get done when someone's sick in a home and can't even get up to the bathroom. Who's going to do all that stuff? I mean, if you had asked me logically, I would have said, well, I guess that's not really what hospice does, but I just would have assumed it would work out. But it doesn't just work out. It has to be planned in advance and has to be strategized. As you hear Rick say in the film, you know, when he left somebody to get her on the commode, he said, well, that was a fiasco. I can't let people. So there are certain things that reality that your friend who's visiting can't do, but there are lots of other things that really don't require any special skill. So maybe Rick does have to do the transfers, but there's several loads of laundry, and there's figuring out what's going to happen for dinner, and there's, I mean, there's so many things that really could be delegated, but they require a little bit of foresight.
I mean, on one level, what you really want is to have, at a certain point, is to have 24-hour care. But who can
Yeah.
afford that? Is that something, I mean, do you see some kind of public health policy in the future that has money attached to it?
Well, the exciting news is that Joe Biden has been a caregiver, and Joe Biden cares about caregivers. And all through his campaign, has been talking about this very big bill that he's planning to pass, $775 billion, which a lot of people in the caregiving community are really saying has some teeth. Like, let's see where it goes. But some of the types of things that he's proposing to do are like pay money into caregivers' SSI, when they can't contribute to it from work, because just pay it. They're doing a job. Pay that money into it so that they have it sort of stored up. Interestingly, in 1993, Joe Biden was one of the signers of the Family Medical Leave Act, but at that point, it was 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Now he's saying, let's make that paid leave. There's just a lot of sort of Medicaid expansion plans that he's making. He's talking about putting 150,000 community health workers on the street, which will be people who can really advocate for caregivers, particularly those who are low income and minority. So, I mean, the amount of money that people are spending on caregiving without getting any compensation is crazy. It's just an unsustainable situation. I think it's $465 billion are being spent on caregiving that's completely uncompensated. And so how can we have our society come in and be the responsible force for supporting caregivers? Because most people don't have communities and won't have access to that type of free support. This is something that should be compensated and paid for, I think, by our government.
What happens when you show this work to other doctors? Are
Wow.
you are you is that part of your trajectory, is to try to help transform the hearts and minds of other of the medical world and the medical establishment and other doctors and health professionals?
Yes, that's probably my biggest personal desire is to raise awareness among trainees, medical students, nurses, people who just don't know about this, make health systems a little bit more oriented towards the caregiver. I'd love to talk to legislators because I think that's where the real power lies. Like, let's talk to our Congress people. Let's bring this is a bipartisan issue. This should not have trouble passing in Congress. Democrats and Republicans are going to be impacted by caregiver burden equally. And I think that, if you can make that case and show this person here who's struggling, who is actually kind of an upper middle class guy, I think it has to speak to people to sort of see what's coming down the pike for them. I mean, that's my hope. But yes, speaking to doctors and obviously speaking to family caregivers and empowering them to, number one, be more aware of what they're going through, and also understand that they deserve and should ask for help and support, and that it's out there for them, or at least some of it is. We need to get more. We need to have more resources. But I think ultimately there's many audiences that need to hear this and hear this story. Employers, employers are losing every year $65 billion on caregiver burden because people are quitting. It's impacting their work. They're switching jobs to get a job that's more caregiver friendly. The employer community is losing a huge amount of. It's a lose-lose situation. So again, all of these stakeholders, if they understand and are aware of the problem, really could start to impact and make things better. And we got to create the safety net. And I think all these systems need to be involved.